Your voice, your opinion, your community. Fact TV, free speech protected.
Turn around. Secrets in the shadows, lost and found. Truth in every echo, loud and clear. Keep on with the long road, no more fear. In the halls of power, whispers grow. Every secret cut beneath the undertone. Honest stories hidden in the dust. On this long road, in the truth we just.
Hello, welcome to The Long Road. I'm your host, Chris Roberts. And today, we're going to talk about something that I've been wondering about for the past 7 or 8 years. When Donald Trump first ran for president in 2016, he kept talking about, we want to make America great. And I could say, we want to make America great again. If you're going to say that we want to make something great again, we have to go to the point, when was America great? They never said anything about America, of finding that point of America greatness that we could agree on, or the majority of agree on, and improve on that. No, the whole thing, the MAGA, the Make America Great, was just something that no one could really come up with it. We had no point. So if I asked Trump, I asked his supporters, when was America great? Where are you thinking America was its greatest? Because that's really important. If you can say, for example, 1945, 46, America was great. And because America was great, so you're saying 45, 46, America was great. Does that mean you want to go back to 1945, 1946? So that's what happens when you come up with a slogan that was purposely set up that you really could, the vast majority of the people could not explain it. What does MAGA mean? Make America great. Pick the point of time where you think America was great, and you're telling me you want to go back to that point in time. Well, I don't think so. If America was the greatest nation on earth in 1946, we just dropped 2 atomic bombs, we defeated Japan, Italy, Germany. We had hardly no damage. We had an economy that was going great. So that's what you want to go back? But then you come to the definition, what is great? Is great mean we're the most powerful country on earth? 1945, 1946, we were the most powerful country on earth. Well, 1950 to 1953, the Korean conflict, well, we didn't do very good. 1964 to 1973, we didn't do very good. 1990, 1991, we did extremely well. 2003 to 2021, we didn't do very good. So are you talking about greatness or power? Well, we have said we're the most powerful nation from 45 all the way up to when? As a powerful nation, the only time we really come military success is we invaded Panama, okay? We invaded Grenada, okay? We didn't do very good in Nicaragua or Honduras or El Salvador. So there's a number of places that we haven't done very good. Okay, do you talk about greatness education-wise? Well, we haven't really done very good at all. So we're spending all this money in military defense. We're spending all this money in education. And we have very little to show for it. So there has to be something. I'm just looking, I've been racking my head for the past 8 years trying to figure out what MAGA means, what Make America Great means. If it isn't education-wise, it isn't industrial-wise, it isn't military-wise. And I just kept digging and digging because I don't like it when I can't find an answer to something. And I kept digging, and what I found, I didn't want to believe, but it was quite shocking because Medal of Honor winners, pictures and autobiographies are being stripped from the Department of Defense's walls and websites and different things. Major heroes are losing their place on the Arlington National Cemetery and other cemeteries on. And I was thinking, wow, this seems an awful like a lot of whitewashing going around. But if I'm saying is make America great, but I'm an American, you're an American, I'm a biracial American. Someone could be a gay American. Someone can be a lesbian or a transgender or an Asian or Hispanic or an African. They're all Americans. Look, all of us who were born here, raised here. For example, you can argue, my parents were citizens and I was born here. So that makes me a citizen. That makes me an American. So we're talking about making America great, but not great for all Americans. Because, for example, if we go down to 45, 46, we're the most powerful nation, military in the world. We had the most industrial powerhouse in the world because Europe, Asia, every place had been destroyed. And we had everything. We controlled everything. But there was an awful lot of Americans who were not able to participate in that period of American greatness. And so I got this thing that came to my house in the mail this week, by imprints. It has over 6,700,000 readers. And it's a speech called Restoring American Culture. Then another one, Public Discourse. Restore culture, faith, and sanity. And then I went back and talked about Trump's inauguration speech and some of the things he said after it. Trump's invocation of American exceptionalism should have come as no surprise. The notion that the United States is unique and superior and has a special destiny among nations has long been an article of faith in American political culture. We have it in our power to begin the world over again, Thomas Paine said in 1776. American independence was widely interpreted as heralding a new order of the ages, and since then, nearly all United States presidents and their political party have embraced the view that the United States is peerless and blessed with a special providence. At the same time, they had often different markedly on the implications of this exceptionalist status for the United States foreign policy. The result is Trump falls into the promised land category, advocating for re-entrenchment from foreign entanglements and forever wars, secure borders, and a heightened focus on the Western Hemisphere where national security is concerned. In historical terms, Trump's closest spiritual predecessor may be Andrew Jackson, another populist U.S. president focused on national greatness. Like Jackson, Trump is insistent on preserving national sovereignty and quite willing to threaten force with a "don't tread on me" philosophy. If provoked, with Trump, the Jacksonian tradition has come roaring back with the current president as its avatar. Okay, for those who remember history or learned about Andrew Jackson came in, quote, as I said, a populist one, the one for the regular man. He felt that Washington was a swamp, the National Bank was wrong, so he got rid of the National Bank of the United States. He got rid of the Native Americans in Georgia, Tennessee, North Carolina, when they found out there may be gold in the hills. Then he wasn't exactly very friendly to blacks. And so, but it was Andrew Jackson basically was pro-American, nationalist, and was going to do what he thought was right for Americans and Americans only. This is a man who had very high regards when he was a general in the Battle of New Orleans for black and Indian Native American soldiers that fought by his side. And what changed? he wanted to become president of the United States. This one by Hinsdale College, and I didn't get a chance to double check, but I think some of the schools, public schools in New Hampshire, are using Hinsdale College online courses. Throughout his presidential campaign, Donald Trump declared that he and his supporters were the party of common sense. In his inaugural address on January 20th, he said, "We will begin the complete restoration of America and the revolution of common sense. It's all about common sense." But this guy, Roger Kimball, goes and says, "Yeah, I agree, but what is common sense?" Well, it starts off pretty good. He goes to a philosopher who said that common sense was the most widely distributed thing in the world. He comes back, is it? I have to note that he was imperfectly acquainted with the realities of the 21st century America. If he were with us today, I'm sure he would have amended his opinion about common sense. And he goes, "After all, is it common sense to pretend that men can be women? Or to pretend that you don't know what a woman is? Is it common sense to sacrifice competency on the altar of so-called diversity?" Okay. You know when they say sacrifice competency on the altar of diversity, are you implying that everybody who is not a white male is more competent than every single, well, we're going to amend it. What he's saying is, or is he implying that the only competent people in America are straight white males? If you're transgender, it doesn't matter if you're male or white or not. You know, if you're transgender and you get a job, that's because you were transgender, not because you were competent. Well, what happens if I'm transgender, no one knows I'm transgender, and I get a job? Oh, how do you say that? Or, you know, when I applied for the Marine Corps, you know, they got to put everything in, and holy crap. My birth certificate says I was white. So the people all the way down in Washington, D.C., reviewing the applications and everything, were reviewing my recommendations, my grades, my extracurricular activities, and all that kind of stuff. Oh, yeah, we got to get 10 black people in today, so we're going to pick the guy Roberts. Oh, well, they didn't have my picture. All they had was my birth certificate. Oh, well. To allow politicians to bankrupt the country by incontinential overspending. That is start of a list that one could easily enlarge. Well, like I said in an earlier show, Donald Trump and Joe Biden in 8 years, increased the budget by $17 trillion. Those two guys increased the budget by over 40, the debt by over 45 trillion, 45%. Is that common sense? Okay. Thing is, in distinguished art from pornography, the Supreme Court said they could not define pornography, but they would know it if they seen it, or saw it. So, if I think something's pornographic, and you don't, it's like, if I think Hustler's magazine is pornographic, I don't have to pick it up. But do I have the right to say you as a consenting adult don't have the right to look at Hustler magazine because I think it's pornographic? Because he's saying is that doing a bunch of this stuff is because, as he says it, an effort to smooth the wounded feelings of people who crave victimhood. Is it common sense to transform higher education from an institution dedicated to the preservation and transmission of the highest values of our civilization? Our civilization? Well, the Aztec, the Mayan, those were pretty powerful and pretty advanced civilizations. The Incas in Peru, those were pretty advanced civilizations. The Egyptians were pretty advanced civilization. The Ming Dynasty and stuff, they were pretty advanced civilization. India had some pretty advanced civilizations. Some African civilizations were pretty advanced. But to transform higher education, but college, the purpose of college, after all, was to ensure that our civilization the highest values of civilization were passed on to our children. Well, do we go back to 1945, 1946, before the GI Bill? That only about 20% of the students got to go into college prep courses and got to go to college? Without the GI Bill, millions and millions and millions of people would have never been able to go to college. And what would happen? They would still be stuck working in the factories. After all, Rockefeller and those guys only wanted to educate people to be workers. Henry Ford did not want educated workers. He wanted workers that would produce, and then he would pay them enough so they could buy what they were producing. Now they're saying is college is now a wrecking ball in destroying our civilization. But whose civilization? Whose? The Roman civilization? The Greek civilization? Well, in recent years, indeed since 1960, our culture has suffered from a deficit of common sense. That deficit has eroded a great many valuable things. The folks in Davos who want to vaccinate us into oblivion encourage us to give up steak for insects and keep tending the windmills to batter the weather are a member of that new shiny self-satisfying group. Oh, so, yeah. What about all those kids that we were growing up? You know, the ones, us old folks, you know, the ones that had those braces on both legs because they had polio, the ones that were stuck in an iron lung. When was the last time that you saw a kid with polio? Person with polio? When was the last time you saw someone with smallpox, measles, German measles, mumps? I can tell you, since I've graduated out of college, I've never seen anybody. Yeah, there's a lot of people in Texas and New Mexico that have the measles. They choose not to vaccinate. That was their choice. But, you know, they run the consequences. Oh, yeah. Oh, look at the houses on Cape Cod, those multi-million-dollar houses they can't sell now because they're getting washed in the ocean. Look at North Carolina and Tennessee when they got nailed by a couple of those hurricanes. Is the climate changing? The climate's changing. The climate always changes. But the question is, how much are we contributing to it? Are we contributing to it? Of course we're contributing to it. Are we contributing as much as the people way over here? Probably not. Are we not contributing? People way over here are like this guy? Probably not. Okay, you want to give up steaks for insects. Well, you know, he's really going a little overboard. You know, a steak or an insect. You know, steak for plants. Plants are pretty healthy. And we do have an obesity problem. And it's talking about maybe by the year 2050 that 2 out of 3 Americans will be obese. That won't be very healthy. He goes, there are especially 2 parts of this process. The first to acknowledge, frankly, the state of decay or ruin for what it is. The abnormal, if not the normal, just because it's prevalent. For example, mutilation of children is not gender-affirmed care. Anti-white racism is not anti-racism. DIC, which I don't agree with it and how it went way overboard. I go, give people an opportunity for quality education and give them an opportunity to compete. Don't guarantee them the job. Don't guarantee them a position. Just give them a good education and give them the opportunity to compete. If they don't want to put the hours in, they don't want to bust their butt, their luck. Because we all know superstars in high school, in college, and everything. Once they got to the next level, they weren't willing to put what was in there to stay or advance. The second part of the ambition to restore American culture begins by rescuing vital examples of cultural achievement from the searing obliviation to which the established elite consigns them. Acts to the first, the state of decay or ruin, I suspect, that we're all familiar with is with the long march through institutions. It's the basic idea the best way to achieve the longed-for revolution is through a process of co-oping, take over society schools. Okay, society schools? Yes. For a lot of them, the outcome sucks. Plain and simple. For the money we put in, the vast majority of the children, unless they have a serious learning disability or they are under such stress at home, trauma at home, or you got a group that just don't give a crap, the rest of those students should be graduating at or near 12th grade English, math, social science, finance, and civics. There should be no reason for that to not happen. I don't care if you're in Baltimore, I don't care if you're in Atlanta or Chicago or LA. For the amount of money we put in, we should be getting a better outcome. If it means you have to go to year-round school to stop learning lost during the summer, it needs to be. If the students need to go 220 days, it needs to be. If we want to get our kids up to this level, all of them, not just the top 20% who we know are going to go on to college, but all the kids, we should get that outcome. But he's not asking for that outcome. He wants to go back to the top 20. He wants to go back when you go Boston Latin, Boston Classics. Okay. The very important people who manage the affair of this society could not believe in the importance of ideas until one day they were shocked to discover their children have been captured and shaped by certain ideas. They either rebelled against their authority or succeeded from society. The truth is, the ideas are all important. The massive and seamlessly solid institution of any society, the economic institutions or the political institutions, the religious institution, are always at the mercy of the ideas in the head of people who populate those institutions. So, what I want you to do is I want you to go to college, but you're not allowed to think. You're not allowed to question. You go to college and you don't get indoctrinated that way. You get indoctrinated into the American culture and you think one way. You think one way, you buy the right house, you buy the right car. You know, you do all the stuff that way. Where he complained, this progress was part and parcel of a larger cultural rebellion against the bourgeoisie values that got going with the advent of modernization. Today we are living in the aftermath of the avant-garde of all those adversary gestures, poses, ambitions, and tactics that emerged and were legitimized in the 1880s and 1890s. Established conservatives have done nothing effectively to challenge this. Then he goes on, from the moment Donald Trump was shot at a rally last July, people have been speaking about a vibe shift, a shift in the zenith of American culture. The revolution in sentiment picked up speed with Trump's election in November, and it began barreling down the main line with an inauguration. We already hear about the peaceful transfer of power. When a new president takes office, the usual procedure is for the old crowd to vacate their positions while the new crowd slides in to take their place. The institutions remain invalidated. Nothing essentially changes. Trump's accession, like he accessed to the throne, was the opposite. He was elected not to preserve the status quo, but to remake it. On January 20th, he moved quickly to show that his administration would not be a collegial of words only. It would be a locomotive of deeds. Within hours of taking office, he issued some 200 executive orders and proclamations affecting everything from immigration, the border, to taxes to cost of living. Directed that federal employees return to work full-time and in person. With a stroke of his pen, he obliterated DEI operations throughout the government. And then he was talking about a BBC production called Civilization. All the artists Clark named in his wide-ranging tour are male. Most of all are not white. Are these things different today? Well, yes, they're different today. But Civilization is a good example of what it might look like to restore culture in an age that has abandoned common sense. It seems old-fashioned, out of date to a generation weaned on social media, special effects, and insensual lectures about the evil of capitalism in the West. That what tells us more about the quality of our times than it does about that. And so, basically, the American culture is based on the Anglo-Saxon culture, which is based on the Greek culture. You're going to learn, I went to school, I had to learn Latin, wasn't very good at it, but, I'm going to go in, you're going to learn Latin, you're going to learn Greek. Why do doctors learn Latin? Because it's a cultural thing. Because they can talk in Latin, and most of their patients have no idea what Latin is. So it gives you the ability to put on airs and communicate without anybody knowing. In the public discourse, it goes, the individual advocates a retrieval of the beauty of the beautiful as the standard for architects and artists. Our churches, schools, commonplaces of life have traded the aspiration to beauty for the enthronement of efficiency. And we are stuck with drab and dull venues because of it. So we want to go to the Pantheon. We want to go to the Roman Colosseum, the great cathedrals. The Cathedral of Notre Dame, Westminster Abbey. So all those, You know, all those took almost slave labor where individuals had really crappy quality of life and just barely got paid enough to survive. What goes on inside our buildings is similarly dreary. We must restore the school as a place of true culture and learning, not the servitude adherent to political fancies. There are only two things wrong with our school. Everything that children learn there and everything they don't. Oh. So what you're telling me is like under our culture, our American culture, what he's saying is everything we learn in the schools nowadays is totally crap, worthless, and goes against the culture. And so we have to get rid of everything we learn and we have to bring back a new system of teaching. Among the latter, grammar. Yeah, I had to do grammar and diagram sentences and all that kind of stuff. It sucks. It was hard. But, you know, it's helped me. I've learned my 6 parts of speech, future, past, perfect. You know those? Yeah. I went to a school that had classic education for the prep kids. You could take Greek or Latin or French, you know, Spanish, Portuguese. Grammar is the key that unlocks an understanding of not only one's own and other languages, but in many other realms of knowledge as well. History, literature, theology, poetry, and even biology. The grammar of the body and chemistry, grammar whose elements are the elements themselves. Okay, I took my college biology, I took college chemistry, I took college history, I took advanced literature, I had to do poetry, no theology, nope. As it is, our schools give us a multicultural education that is just a cultural solvent and a cover for the stringent impositions of a religious and oppressive that's that stupid TBI I had when I was in the Marine Corps. I can't pronounce all the words. So he's saying, get rid of multicultural education. So, the only Spanish that I should be taught in school was De Soto, who came and discovered the Mississippi, or Ponce de Leon, who was searching to the Fountain of Youth in Florida, or Cortez that took care of the Aztecs in Mexico, or Juan Pizarro, who took care of the Incas in what's now Peru in that area, or what the British did and things like that. Public schools avoid religion questions at the cost of censor the most human questions. The stories composing our history neglect in favor of whatever creed the child's primary educator, the state, happens to favor. Our schools have become a dead loss. Okay? But you know what? A lot of Americans have given up all obligation of their children's education to the school system. What about parents? Parents need to be involved. For the parents, it's your child. Okay, the most important thing you are is to help your child become a productive human being. So who do you trust with your child's education? You should be able to, when a child comes home, ask the child questions. What about this? What about that? Okay? If my grandkid comes home, or when my daughter came home, daughters, and they're doing history, I should be able to ask them the question that on things that I just stated today, and they should be able to give an answer. Well, I can tell you, they won't know the answer. And a lot of kids in college won't know the answer. Because education for a lot of people, a lot of organization is a business. Higher education is no better. In some cases, it's much worse. The political correctness and identity politics dominate discourse. Learning is no more. A professor must get to navigate an emotional and verbal and political minefield before he opens his mouth. Then he's in a servantine function, no matter his title and no matter how well he's paid. The average state university is an expensive program in aggressive miseducation. And most Catholic universities is not much different. And then in his bold thing, he says, whorehouses and mental wards would be much cheaper. They may well be healthier. I totally disagree with that statement. But he is saying, don't send our kids to school, don't send our kids to college, or if you do, make sure you send them to the right ones. You know, like the old colleges, Patrick Henry College, Thomas Aquinas College, the Catholic University of America, and other like schools, colleges, and high schools. Financial donations should be directed towards those new or old and recently formed institutions where our money can make a massive institutional difference. The true patriot, quote, the true patriot does not send a check to Benedict Arnold hoping that some of it will find its way to Washington's army. We need to ensure the best of our undergraduate and graduate students that they will find a place to work, whether it's in a classical high school or in a faithful faith-based college where we do this. Since men and women are different from one another down to the roots, down to the cell, single-sex education is the way to appropriately shepherd boys and girls in the full development of their own gifts. A single observation can summarize the chapter he wrote on womanhood. If a woman professionally arranges flowers or cooks fine Italian meals or plays violin for an orchestra or gives singing lessons, she will be praised for engaging her gifts and making something of herself, even if she returns home from her day's labor and is unwilling or unable to care for her children. Will be praised and engaged for her gifts. But a woman well-versed in all the household arts does all of these things for whom she loves and cares the most. We shake our heads and say that she's wasted her talents by staying home. So, again, so now when we're talking about the Secretary of Transportation was going to give much more money to areas that have a high marriage rate and a high childbirth rate. So if you get to do all these things, you know it really well, but you say, nope, I'm not going to do it. I'm going to stay home and take care of my children. Your community will benefit from the Trump administration. But this community, if the woman does it all and then has to hire a nanny or decides that she doesn't want to have children, her community will be punished by the Trump administration. Where he goes in, consequently, we now have what every single one of the founding Federalists or anti-Federalists would have considered tyrannical. We are what the ancient Greeks would have considered both idiots and barbarians. Idiots because he put the Greek word spelling, because we aren't interested in living truly political lives, because we are deprived of that opportunity even where we do want it by a massive government. It's he feels that it's going to revolve around the principles of subsidiary. What is locally managed is not only most efficiently managed, but it's the occasion for real formation engagement, the theaters in which deeply personal stories develop. We need to engage our imaginations and try to revive social life on our own. And all things will be given him besides. Those marked with the character of Christ will not pay for the fruitful gains of this world and will not serve other gods before a living Christ. So, local. So up here in Concord, the House passed, and now we're going to Senate, is going to put a tax cap on local school budgets. They're doing away with the vaccine commission, who used to buy all the vaccines wholesale. Now, if anybody wants to give out vaccines, they have to go on the open market and buy it, which of course is going to be much higher. Okay, so now a lot of people won't get vaccines. Okay, I think the goal is be able to allow kids to come to school without taking vaccines. Then there's a whole bunch. Let's go down to the local. When he's talking about, well, we don't like what's taught in schools, so now we can give money out of the state education fund for people who are going to religious schools. So that way, by going in there, following the religion, the Christianity, Judeo-Christian, we say Christian Judeo, because that's our culture. And so basically, it is Magna, Make America Great, restoring America's culture, is only going to benefit the small people, the small group of people. You know, you go back and watch some of the old TV shows, the 1880s, 1890s, 1900s. You know, you had these nice houses and people had maids and they didn't work, things like that. They had investments. and they made sure that their children went to the right schools, went to the right college, married the right people. So everybody was in there. You wouldn't have a scandal if your son married someone who wasn't in the group, or your daughter married someone that was beneath her. That society that we were told over and over again, we don't have classes in America, but we did have that class. And that was an all-white class, basically an Anglo-Saxon class. Because if you go back and look, it took a long time for Irish people to be considered white. It took a long time for Italians to become white. It took a long time before Hungarians and Romanians and Slavic people to be classified as really low level on the the totem pole, the IQ pole. So, and then they go in. So what we're saying is, Magna, when we make America great, we're not going to have any elitists. I think they need to go up and look at the Oxford Dictionary of what an elitist is. If I have a $500 million yacht and I fly wherever I want to go, I bring this, we have an elite in the United States. And a lot of the elite are Republicans. And so what I do is, I don't want to take anybody to take my word of this is my opinion based on these. I would truly like you to go out and do as much research on your own on what is meant by restoring America's culture. Because from what I'm reading and what I see from America, Make America Great, a lot of us are not going to fit in America's culture.